Richard Caldwell grabbed the doctor by the collar and slammed him against the wall. "You told me you could fix her." His voice cracked like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. The doctor's clipboard hit the floor. Papers scattered. "Mr. Caldwell, if your daughter doesn't eat within 48 hours, her organs will begin to shut down." Richard released him. His hands were shaking. His 3-year-old daughter hadn't eaten in 2 weeks, and every expert in the country had failed. But what happened next, what a young black maid from the South Side did with nothing but a slice of bread, no one in that penthouse saw coming. Before we begin, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. Drop a comment and tell me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Now let me take you back to where it all started. The call came at 2:47 in the morning. Richard Caldwell was sitting at his desk in the penthouse reviewing contracts for a deal worth $400 million when his phone lit up. He didn't recognize the number. He almost didn't answer. "Mr. Caldwell." "Who is this?" "Sir, this is Officer Davis with the Chicago Police Department. There's been an accident on Lakeshore Drive. Your wife, Eleanor Caldwell." "What about her?" A pause. The kind that changes everything. "Sir, I'm sorry. She didn't make it." Richard stood up. The chair rolled back and hit the bookshelf. "What do you mean she didn't make it? She went to pick up medicine. She called me an hour ago. She said she'd be right back." "Sir, the roads were icy. Her vehicle crossed into oncoming traffic. The paramedics did everything they could." Richard's legs gave out. He grabbed the edge of the desk, knocking over a glass of water. It shattered on the floor. He didn't notice. "That's not possible. You have the wrong person. My wife is coming home." "Mr. Caldwell." "Check again." "Sir, we've confirmed the identification. I'm deeply sorry. We need you to come to Northwestern Memorial." He hung up, stood in the dark, and then he heard footsteps. Small, bare feet on hardwood. He turned around. Lily stood in the doorway holding a stuffed rabbit by one ear, her blonde hair messy from sleep. "Daddy, why are you standing in the dark?" He couldn't answer. He walked over, picked her up, pressed her against his chest so tight she squirmed. "Daddy, you're squishing me." "I know, baby. I'm sorry. Where's Mommy?" He closed his eyes. "Mommy's not here right now." "When is she coming back?" He didn't answer. He just held her and felt the world fall apart around him. 6 months later, the penthouse looked the same. Same furniture, same windows overlooking Lake Michigan, same photographs on the walls, but everything inside it had died. Mrs. Harper, the housekeeper, who'd been with the family for 12 years, moved through the kitchen that Tuesday morning like someone attending a funeral that never ended. She set a tray on the counter. Scrambled eggs, toast cut into triangles, a glass of orange juice. She arranged everything carefully the way Eleanor used to. She carried it upstairs, knocked on Lily's door. "Lily, sweetheart, breakfast." No answer. She pushed the door open. Lily sat on the floor by her bed, knees pulled to her chest, staring at a photograph on the wall. Eleanor smiling, holding Lily at the beach. The little girl's ribs were starting to show through her pajama top. Her cheekbones were too sharp for a 3-year-old. Mrs. Harper set the tray on the dresser. "I made your favorite, darling. Eggs just the way you like them." Nothing. "Just one bite for me." Lily didn't blink, didn't move. It was like talking to a photograph. Mrs. Harper stood there for a full minute waiting. Then she picked up the tray and walked out. In the hallway, she pressed her back against the wall, covered her mouth, and cried. 15 minutes later, she scraped the eggs into the trash. Same as yesterday, same as the day before, same as every day for the last 2 weeks. Richard came downstairs at 7:15. Suit on, tie straight, hair combed. He looked like a man heading to a board meeting, but his eyes told a different story. They were red, hollow. He hadn't slept more than 3 hours in months. He poured himself coffee. "Did she eat?" Mrs. Harper shook her head. "Nothing. Not even a sip of juice." Richard set the coffee down hard enough to spill. Call Dr. Whitfield again. He was here yesterday, sir. He said the same thing. Then call someone else. Call Stanford. Call Mayo. I don't care who. Someone in this country knows how to help a child eat. Sir, Mrs. Harper's voice was careful. We've had 9 specialists in 2 weeks. Pediatricians, child psychologists, a feeding therapist from New York. They all say the same thing. She's physically capable. She's choosing not to. She's 3 years old. She doesn't get to choose to starve herself. The kitchen went silent. Richard braced both hands on the counter, head down, breathing hard. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I know. His voice broke. I can't lose her too, Mrs. Harper. I can't. I know. He straightened up, wiped his face with the back of his hand. What about the new hire the agency said someone was coming today? She should be here by 8. What do we know about her? Not much. She's young, 24, comes from the South Side. Her references were good. She's worked in 3 households before. That's it? That's it. Richard nodded. Fine. Show her around. Keep her away from Lily. I don't need another stranger upsetting my daughter. He picked up his coffee and walked out. Mrs. Harper watched him go. The man she'd watched build a billion-dollar company, a man who'd stood in front of senators and CEOs without flinching, was disappearing. Same as his daughter. Just slower. Amara Jenkins took the 6:15 train from the South Side. She sat by the window with her hands folded in her lap, watching the city change as the train moved north. Cracked sidewalks became clean ones. Chain-link fences became iron gates. Bodegas became boutiques. Her phone buzzed. A text from her cousin Denise. You nervous? Amara typed back. A little. Girl, you're cleaning a billionaire's house. Don't touch nothing expensive. Amara almost smiled. Almost. She got off at the loop and walked 4 blocks to the high-rise. The doorman looked her up and down before letting her in. She didn't say anything. She was used to that. Mrs. Harper met her at the service entrance, handed her an apron. You're Amara. Yes, ma'am. Kitchen's through here. Breakfast first, for the girl. They walked in. Amara stopped. The kitchen was bigger than her entire apartment. Everything gleamed. Granite counters, stainless steel, windows floor to ceiling. Mrs. Harper pointed to the cutting board. Chop the fruit. I'll handle the eggs. Amara washed her hands and got to work. The knife made soft sounds against the board. Neither of them spoke for a while. The house was so quiet, it felt like a church after everyone leaves. Then Amara asked, Where's the little girl? Mrs. Harper didn't look up. Upstairs. Is she sleeping? She doesn't sleep much. She just sits. Sits. Mrs. Harper turned to her. Her eyes were tired and wet. The girl lost her mother 6 months ago. Car accident. Since then, she's been fading. Stopped talking. Stopped playing. 2 weeks ago, she stopped eating entirely. Won't touch anything. Amara set the knife down. Doctors come and go, Mrs. Harper continued. Specialists. Psychologists. Nobody can reach her. She just sits in her room and stares at her mother's picture. Amara's hands went still. Something inside her chest tightened so hard she couldn't breathe for a second. How old is she? 3. Amara closed her eyes. 3 years old, sitting alone in a room, waiting for a mother who would never come back. She knew that feeling. She knew it in her bones. Are you all right? Mrs. Harper asked. Amara opened her eyes. I lost my mother when I was 7. Mrs. Harper studied her face. Amara studied hers back. Something passed between them. Not pity, understanding. I'm sorry, Mrs. Harper said. It was a long time ago. Amara picked the knife back up. But some things don't care how long ago they were. At 10 a.m. Mrs. Harper came downstairs with the breakfast tray, untouched, eggs cold, toast dry, juice sitting in the glass like it had given up. She scraped everything into the trash. Amara watched. This happens every day. 3 times a day. I make the food. I bring it up. I bring it back. And her father? He goes up every few hours, reads to her, talks to her, begs her. Mrs. Harper rinsed the plate. She doesn't respond. It's like she's gone somewhere none of us can follow. Amara dried her hands slowly. What does she do when he's there? Nothing, sits, stares. Sometimes she looks at the picture of her mother. That's all. Does she ever cry? Mrs. Harper paused. Not once. Not since the funeral. That's what scares me most. Amara felt that hit her chest like a fist. A child who won't cry is a child whose decided feeling is too dangerous. She knew because she'd been that child. Footsteps above them, heavy, slow. That's Mr. Caldwell, Mrs. Harper whispered. He paces when he's worried, which is all the time now. A minute later, Richard came into the kitchen. He didn't look at Amara, just poured more coffee and stood by the window. Amara kept her voice gentle. Good morning, sir. He glanced over. You're the new hire. Yes, sir, Amara Jenkins. He nodded once, looked back at the window. Mrs. Harper told you about my daughter. She did. Then you should know the last 3 people who tried to help ended up making things worse. One of them upset her so badly she threw up. Another one cried harder than she did. The third just stood there and said he'd never seen anything like it. He took a sip of coffee. So if you have any ideas about going up there and trying something, don't. I understand. She doesn't need another stranger in her room. She needs... He stopped. His jaw clenched. She needs her mother, and I can't give her that. The kitchen was so quiet, Amara could hear the clock on the wall. Mr. Caldwell, she said, I'm not here to fix your daughter. I'm here to do my job. But if you don't mind me saying, I know what she's feeling. He turned. How could you possibly know what she's feeling? Because I was her. My mother died when I was 7. Brain aneurysm. One morning she was making me breakfast. By noon she was gone. Richard stared at her. I stopped eating too. For 3 weeks. My grandma tried everything. Doctors, her pastor, neighbors bringing casseroles. Nothing worked. Amara met his eyes. Until my grandma stopped trying to fix me and just sat with me. Just sat with you. Just sat, didn't talk, didn't push, didn't ask me to eat. She just showed up every day, sat in my room, and let me know I wasn't alone. Richard's hand tightened around his cup. And that worked. Not right away, but eventually I reached for her, because she was the only person who didn't try to make me feel something I wasn't ready to feel. Richard stood there for a long time. Then he set down his cup. Stay downstairs. Do your job. Leave Lily to the professionals. He walked out. Amara let out a slow breath. Mrs. Harper came up beside her. He's not a bad man, Mrs. Harper said quietly. He's just terrified. I know. He's lost control of everything. His wife, his daughter, his whole life. And he's a man who's used to controlling everything. Amara looked at the untouched tray on the counter. Control won't save that little girl. I know that, you know that. But he doesn't, not yet. That afternoon, Dr. Whitfield came for his daily visit. Amara heard him arrive, expensive shoes on the marble floor briefcase clicking open, that particular tone doctors use when they're being paid by the hour. She was cleaning in the kitchen, but she could hear everything through the open hallway. Mr. Caldwell, her weight has dropped again. She's lost nearly 4 pounds in 2 weeks. For a child her size, that's significant. I know it's significant. What are we doing about it? We're monitoring closely. The nutritional support plan. The plan, she won't touch that plan. Sir, I understand your frustration. Do you? Do you understand what it's like to watch your daughter starve herself and have a team of people with degrees tell you to be patient? Silence. If she doesn't eat within the next 48 hours, I'm recommending we admit her. An IV line supervised feeding. You want to put her in a hospital. I want to keep her alive. She's 3 years old. She just lost her mother. And your solution is to strap her to a bed and force a tube down her throat. Mr. Caldwell, get out. Sir, please. I said, get out. Footsteps. The front door opened and closed. Then the sound of something hitting the wall. A coffee cup, maybe. It shattered. Amara gripped the edge of the counter. Mrs. Harper had frozen by the sink. Then they heard it. Richard Caldwell. The man worth $3 billion, the man whose name was on buildings, was crying. Not quietly, not the controlled kind. Deep, broken sobs coming from behind his office door. Mrs. Harper wiped her eyes and went back to washing dishes. Amara stood still, listening to a father fall apart. She whispered under her breath, so soft Mrs. Harper couldn't hear, Lord, I don't know what you want me to do here, but if you brought me to this house, don't let me waste it. Show me, please. Upstairs, Lily sat on the floor of her room, knees to her chest, eyes on her mother's photograph. She hadn't moved in hours. She didn't know that downstairs a stranger was praying for her. But somewhere deep inside, in a place she couldn't name, something stirred, just barely, like the first breath before waking up. That evening, Mrs. Harper prepared the dinner tray. A small bowl of chicken broth, crackers, apple slices cut into stars the way Eleanor used to do it. Amara watched her arrange everything with trembling hands. Mrs. Harper. Yes. Let me take it up. Mrs. Harper stopped. He told you to stay downstairs. I know what he told me. If he finds out, then he fires me. I'll find another job. Amara's voice was steady. But that little girl has been alone with her pain for 6 months. And I'm the only person in this house who knows what that feels like. Mrs. Harper looked at her for a long time. Then she stepped aside. Amara lifted the tray. Her heart was pounding. Not from fear of Richard, from the weight of what she was about to do. She climbed the stairs slowly. The hallway was lined with photographs. Lily as a baby. Lily on a swing, laughing so hard her eyes were shut. Lily in Eleanor's arms, both of them glowing like nothing bad could ever touch them. Amara stopped outside the door, took a breath, knocked softly. Lily. My name is Amara. I brought your dinner. Silence. She pushed the door open. The room was pale blue, stuffed animals on shelves untouched. A dollhouse in the corner perfectly arranged, covered in a thin layer of dust. And on the floor with her back against the bed sat the smallest, most fragile child Amara had ever seen. Lily's blonde hair hung loose. Her eyes were open but empty. Her arms were so thin. Amara set the tray on the dresser, not in front of Lily, not close, just nearby. Then she pulled a chair over, not too close, 5 or 6 feet away, and sat down. She didn't speak, didn't push, just sat there, breathing the same air, sharing the same silence. Minutes passed. The light from the window shifted. Finally, Amara spoke, barely above a whisper. You know, Lily, you don't have to eat if you don't want to. Lily's eyelashes flickered. Just barely. My grandma used to say that when someone's heart hurts too much, food doesn't taste right anymore. Like everything in your mouth feels wrong. Like it doesn't belong there. Lily's head turned a fraction of an inch. I lost my mama when I was 7. Amara's voice was soft and even. And after she died, I didn't want to eat either. Nothing made sense anymore. I kept thinking, why should I eat when she can't? The room was so still, Amara could hear her own heartbeat. Then so quiet, she almost missed it. A small, cracked voice. Your mama died? Amara's eyes filled. Yes, baby. She did. Lily turned her head a little more, looked at her, really looked at her. Mine too. I know. Mrs. Harper told me. I'm so sorry. Lily stared at her like she was trying to see through her, trying to figure out if this woman was telling the truth or just saying words. "Did it hurt?" Lily whispered. "Every single day." "Does it still hurt?" "Sometimes, but not the same way." Amara leaned forward slightly. "It gets softer, like it's still there but it doesn't cut as deep." Lily's lip trembled, and for the first time in 2 weeks, for the first time in months, something changed behind those hollow eyes. Not happiness, not relief, recognition. Like she'd finally found someone who understood. "Will you stay?" Lily whispered. Amara's voice broke. "As long as you want me to." They sat there together as the last light faded. Lily didn't eat. Amara didn't ask her to. But something had shifted. Something invisible and enormous. Like the first crack in a wall that had been holding back everything. Outside the door, Mrs. Harper stood with both hands pressed to her mouth, tears pouring down her face. And downstairs, Richard sat at his desk phone in hand, staring at the number for Northwestern Memorial, trying to decide whether to admit his daughter to a hospital. He didn't know that upstairs, for the first time since her mother died, his little girl had spoken to a stranger. He didn't know that a woman he'd told to stay downstairs had just done what 9 specialists couldn't. And he didn't know that tomorrow morning everything was about to change because of a grilled cheese sandwich. Amara couldn't sleep that night. She lay in her small apartment on the south side staring at the ceiling, listening to the radiator click and hiss. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Lily's face. Those hollow eyes. That cracked little voice whispering, "Mine too." Like she'd been carrying a secret too heavy for her tiny body, and finally found someone to hand a piece of it to. Amara turned over, pressed her face into the pillow. She remembered being 7. Remembered sitting on the kitchen floor after her mother's funeral, still wearing her black dress, her shoes too tight. Everyone had come back to the house. Adults were talking in low voices, eating potato salad and fried chicken, saying things like, "She's in a better place," and "God has a plan." Amara didn't want potato salad. She didn't want a plan. She wanted her mama to walk through the door and pick her up and tell her it was all a bad dream. Her grandmother found her there behind the table, knees pulled to her chest. Grandma Ruth didn't say anything. She just sat down on the floor next to her right there in her good Sunday dress and put her arm around her. Didn't say, "It'll be okay." Didn't say, "Be strong." Just sat there. And for the first time that whole terrible day, Amara cried. That was 20 years ago. And tonight, in a penthouse 30 miles north, a 3-year-old was sitting on the floor the same way, waiting for someone to just sit with her. Amara got up. It was 4:30 in the morning. She made coffee, got dressed, and caught the first train. She arrived at the penthouse before the sun came up. The city was still dark, streetlights reflecting off empty sidewalks. She let herself in through the service entrance and stood in the quiet kitchen thinking. 2 weeks. 14 days without food. 9 specialists. Hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on experts who knew everything about nutrition and nothing about a 3-year-old's broken heart. Amara opened the refrigerator. She moved past the organic vegetables, past the imported cheeses, past the carefully labeled containers from the nutritionist. Each one measured, calculated, designed by someone who'd never sat on Lily's floor. She reached to the back and pulled out the simple things. White bread, butter, American cheese in plastic wrap. "You're here early." Amara turned. Mrs. Harper stood in the doorway tying her robe. "Couldn't sleep," Amara said. Mrs. Harper looked at what was in her hands. Her eyebrows went up. "What are you doing?" Amara set the bread on the counter. "When my grandma was trying to get me to eat after my mama died, she didn't make fancy meals. She didn't count calories or follow a plan. She made grilled cheese, just butter, bread, and cheese, nothing special. But it was the first thing I ate in 3 weeks." Mrs. Harper was quiet for a moment. Then her face softened, and something wet flickered in her eyes. "I used to make those for Lily, before." Before, before everything. Mrs. Harper's voice cracked. Eleanor would bring Lily down on Sunday mornings after church, and I'd have them ready. Lily would climb up on the stool and watch me flip them. She called them Mrs. Harper's magic sandwiches. Amara felt her chest tighten. Then maybe that's what she needs, not something perfect, something that feels like home. She turned on the stove, put the pan on the burner, dropped in a pat of butter, and watched it slide across the surface and start to sizzle. Mrs. Harper watched her. Mr. Caldwell won't like this. I know. There's a meal plan. The nutritionist was very specific. I know that too. He told you to stay downstairs, to stay away from her. Amara laid the bread down, added the cheese. Mrs. Harper, that little girl hasn't eaten in 2 weeks. She's not touching what the nutritionist made. She's not responding to the doctors. She spoke to me last night. First words she said to anyone besides her father in months. Mrs. Harper stared at her. She spoke to you. She asked me if my mama died. She said mine too. And then she asked me to stay. Mrs. Harper put her hand on the counter like she needed it to hold her up. Oh, Lord. I'm not trying to be a hero, Amara said. I'm not trying to prove anything, but I know what she's feeling. And I know that right now, she doesn't need a meal plan. She needs someone who gets it. The butter sizzled. The bread turned golden. The smell filled the kitchen, warm, simple, honest, like someone's grandmother's house on a Saturday afternoon. Mrs. Harper wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. If he fires you, then he fires me. You need this job. That little girl needs to eat. Mrs. Harper looked at her for a long time. Then she reached into the cabinet, pulled out a plain white plate, and set it on the counter next to the stove. She didn't say anything else. She didn't need to. Amara flipped the sandwich. The cheese oozed out the sides, golden and melting. She pressed it down gently with the spatula the way Grandma Ruth used to. Not too hard. Just enough. Footsteps on the stairs. Heavy. Fast. Richard appeared in the doorway. He'd been running hair-damp sweat on his neck, wearing a tracksuit that probably cost more than Amara's rent. He stopped cold when he saw the pan. What is that, breakfast? Amara said calmly. That's not on the plan. No, sir, it's not. His jaw tightened. The doctors prescribed specific foods. The nutritionist designed a recovery protocol. There's a system in place. I understand that. Then what are you doing? Amara turned off the stove, slid the sandwich onto the plate, cut it into 4 perfect triangles. She turned to face him. Mr. Caldwell, the doctors prescribed food she won't eat. The nutritionist designed a plan she won't follow. 9 specialists have come and gone, and your daughter is still sitting on that floor getting thinner every day. His face flushed. So your solution is a grilled cheese. My solution is something that doesn't feel like medicine. Something that feels like her mother. The kitchen went dead silent. Richard's expression shifted. Something behind his eyes cracked just for a second before he sealed it back up. You don't know what her mother would have done. No, but Mrs. Harper does. He looked at Mrs. Harper. She met his eyes and nodded slowly. Eleanor made them every Sunday, sir. After church. Lily loved them. Richard's hand gripped the edge of the counter. His knuckles were white. He stood there, jaw clenched, fighting with himself. The businessman in him wanted the system, the plan, the experts. But the father, the desperate, terrified father who'd heard a doctor say 48 hours, that man was willing to try anything. If this doesn't work, he said, his voice low and tight, you're done here, today, no discussion. I understand. And if it upsets her, if she cries, if she reacts badly in any way, then I'll leave. But Mr. Caldwell, she's not reacting to anything right now. That's the problem. He stared at her. The clock on the wall ticked 3 times. Then he stepped aside. Amara picked up the plate. Mrs. Harper handed her a napkin. Their eyes met, and Mrs. Harper gave her the smallest nod, the kind that says, I'm praying for you." Amara walked toward the stairs. Her heart was hammering. Not from Richard's threat. Not from fear of losing her job. From hope. Fragile, terrifying hope. She whispered under her breath as she climbed, "Please, God, let this mean something." The hallway was quiet. The photographs watched her pass. Eleanor smiling. Eleanor holding Lily. Eleanor alive and whole and unaware that an icy road would take her from everyone who loved her. Amara stopped at Lily's door. It was cracked open same as yesterday. She knocked softly. "Lily, it's Amara. I brought you something." No answer. She pushed the door open. Lily was in the exact same spot. Floor. Back against the bed. Knees pulled up. Eyes on nothing. She looked even smaller than yesterday, if that was possible. Like she was shrinking into herself, trying to disappear. Amara walked in slowly. Set the plate on the floor between them, not in front of Lily, not pushed toward her. Just there. Present. She pulled the chair to the same spot as last night. Sat down. And then she did something no one expected. She picked up one of the triangles and took a bite herself. She chewed slowly. Deliberately. Like she had nowhere else to be. Like the whole world was just this room and this moment and this taste. Lily's eyes moved. Just slightly. Toward the plate. Amara swallowed. Took another bite. The cheese was still warm, stretching in that way that grilled cheese does when it's made right. She didn't look at Lily. Didn't watch her. Just ate. Like this was the most normal thing in the world. "My grandma used to say," Amara said softly, still looking at her own sandwich, "grilled cheese tastes better when you share it with someone you trust." Lily's eyes stayed on the plate. Amara set the triangle down, sat back, waited. A full minute passed, then two. Then Lily's voice came, barely there, like wind through a cracked window. "Mommy made these." Amara's heart stopped. She kept her voice steady. "She did?" Lily nodded, the tiniest movement. "On Sundays, after church, she let me watch." "That sounds really nice. Mrs. Harper made them too, but Mommy's were better." A pause. "Don't tell Mrs. Harper." Something that was almost a smile touched Amara's lips. "I won't. I promise." Silence again. Lily stared at the triangles. Her hand lifted from her lap, then dropped back down. Lifted again. Dropped. Amara didn't push. Didn't say, "Go ahead," or "Just try it," or "It's good for you." She just sat there. Present. Patient. "Miss Amara." "Yeah, baby." "If I eat it." Lily's voice shook. "Will I forget her?" The question hit Amara so hard she had to grip the arm of the chair. She took a breath. Held it. Let it go. "No, baby. Eating it means you remember her. Every bite is a memory of Sunday mornings with your mama. You're not forgetting her. You're keeping her close." Lily's eyes filled with tears. The first tears Amara had seen from her. "Promise. I promise. Cross your heart. Cross my heart." Lily's hand reached out again. This time it didn't stop. Her fingers were so small they could barely grip the triangle. She brought it to her face. Held it there. Smelled it. Tears rolled down her cheeks. One, then another, then a stream. "It smells like Sundays," she whispered. Amara couldn't speak. She just nodded. Lily opened her mouth, took the smallest bite, barely a nibble. She chewed slowly, eyes squeezed shut, tears falling so fast they dripped off her chin onto her pajamas. She swallowed, and then she broke. Not quietly, not gently. She broke the way a dam breaks all at once, everything rushing out. Deep, shattered sobs that sounded like they'd been locked inside a cage for 6 months. Her tiny body shook. Her face crumpled. She cried with her whole chest, her whole stomach, her whole soul. Amara moved to the floor, pulled Lily into her arms. The little girl collapsed against her, one hand still clutching the grilled cheese, the other gripping Amara's shirt so tight her knuckles turned white.
"I miss her," Lily cried. "I miss Mommy. I miss her so much." "I know, baby."
Amara rocked her gently.
"I know you do." "She said she was coming right back. She promised. She promised she was coming back."
"I know." "Why didn't she come back? Why did she leave?" "She didn't want to leave you, baby. She didn't want to."
"Then why?"
Lily pulled back, face, red eyes, swollen snot and tears everywhere.
"Why did she go?"
Amara held her face in both hands, wiped her tears with her thumbs. "Sometimes things happen that nobody wants. Nobody planned. Not your mama, not your daddy, not God. Sometimes the world just breaks, and all we can do is hold on to each other. But I don't have anyone to hold on to. You have me. Right here, right now. You have me." Lily stared at her through blurry eyes. Then she buried her face in Amara's shoulder and sobbed so hard she could barely breathe. Between gasps, she took another bite of the sandwich. Then another. Crying and eating at the same time like she couldn't do one without the other. Amara held her and let her fall apart. Didn't shush her. Didn't tell her to calm down. Didn't say, "Everything's going to be okay." Just held her. Because sometimes okay isn't what you need to hear. Sometimes you just need someone to sit in the wreckage with you. Neither of them saw Richard. He was standing in the doorway. He'd followed Amara up. He'd been watching from the moment she sat down. He'd watched her eat the sandwich. He'd heard Lily speak. He'd seen his daughter reach for the food. And when she took that first bite, his hand flew to his mouth and he pressed himself against the wall so they wouldn't see him. Now he stood there, both hands over his face, his whole body shaking. Tears poured through his fingers. His knees buckled, and he grabbed the doorframe to keep from falling. His daughter was eating. For the first time in 2 weeks. His daughter was crying, for the first time since the funeral. He'd thought the silence was the worst part. He'd thought that empty, hollow stare was the bottom. But he'd been wrong. The silence wasn't grief. The silence was her drowning. This, the sobbing, the breaking, the falling apart. This was her coming up for air. He wanted to rush in, wanted to drop to his knees and pull her close and never let go. But something stopped him. Something in the way Lily was holding on to Amara, the way her small fingers gripped this woman's shirt like a lifeline. He realized with a pain that cut deeper than anything he'd ever felt that his daughter had found comfort in a stranger. A woman she'd known for 2 days had reached her when he, her own father, could not. It should have made him angry. Part of him wanted it to. But it didn't. It made him grateful. So deeply, painfully grateful that he couldn't stand up straight. Mrs. Harper appeared at the end of the hallway. She saw Richard pressed against the wall, shaking. She started toward him, alarmed. He held up one hand. Then he pointed at the open door. Mrs. Harper looked inside. She saw Lily in Amara's arms, crying and eating the grilled cheese clutched in her small fist. Mrs. Harper's hands went to her heart. She pressed them there hard, like she was trying to hold herself together. She looked at Richard. He looked at her. Neither of them could speak. They just stood there, 2 people who loved this child, watching a miracle made of bread, butter, and cheese. Inside the room, Lily's sobs were slowing. Her breathing was ragged, hiccuping, but the storm was passing. She pulled back from Amara's shoulder and looked down at the triangle in her hand. Half of it was gone. "I ate it," she said, like she was surprised, like she'd done something impossible. "You did, baby. You did." Lily looked at the plate. 3 triangles left. She picked up another one, looked at it, then looked at Amara. "Can you eat one too? So I'm not by myself." Amara's throat closed. She picked up a triangle. "Together." Lily nodded. "Together." They ate at the same time, Lily chewing slowly, tears still wet on her face, but something different in her eyes now. Not happiness, not yet, but presence. She was there. She was in the room. She was alive. When Lily finished the second triangle,
She set it down and leaned against Amara's side. Her body was exhausted. 6 months of silence, 6 months of holding everything inside, and now the dam had broken, and everything had poured out. Miss Amara. Yeah, baby. My tummy hurts. That's because it's been empty for a long time. It's waking up again. Like me. Amara pulled her closer. Yeah, baby. Like you. Lily closed her eyes. Will you be here tomorrow? I'll be here. Promise. Promise. Lily's breathing slowed. Within minutes, she was asleep. Curled up on the floor, head against Amara's arm, one hand still resting on the plate like she was protecting it. Amara didn't move. She sat there holding this child who wasn't hers in a house that wasn't hers in a life she never expected to be part of. And she cried. Quietly. Not for herself. For Lily. For Eleanor. For every child who ever sat alone on a cold floor and waited for someone to understand. She heard a sound at the door and looked up. Richard was standing there. His face was wrecked. Eyes, red cheeks, wet jaw trembling. He opened his mouth to say something, but nothing came out. He tried again. How? That was all he could manage. One word. How? Amara looked down at Lily sleeping against her. She didn't need an expert Mr. Caldwell. She needed someone who'd been where she is. Richard leaned against the doorframe. His legs didn't seem trustworthy. I sat with her every day, every single day. I read to her. I begged her. I told her I loved her. I know you did. Then why couldn't I reach her? Amara was quiet for a moment. Because you were trying to fix her, and she didn't need to be fixed. She needed someone to sit in the dark with her and say, I've been here too. It's the worst place in the world. And you don't have to leave it alone. Richard's face crumpled. He pressed his palm against his eyes. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to just sit with it. I'm a man who fixes things. That's what I do. That's all I know. That's not a failure, sir. That's just being a father who loves his daughter. It feels like a failure. I know it does. He dropped his hand and looked at Lily, sleeping, peaceful, her cheeks still wet, her hand on the plate. He took a step into the room, then stopped, like he was afraid of breaking something fragile. Can I? His voice cracked. Can I sit with her? She's your daughter, Mr. Caldwell. You don't need to ask. He crossed the room slowly, lowered himself to the floor beside them. His suit pants pressed against the carpet, and he didn't care. He reached out and touched Lily's hair, gently, like she was made of glass. She ate, he whispered. She actually ate. 2 triangles, and she asked to share. Richard made a sound that wasn't quite a laugh and wasn't quite a sob. She asked to share. She said she didn't want to eat alone. He closed his eyes. His hand rested on Lily's head, and he just breathed. In and out. In and out. Like he was learning how to do it again. After a while, he opened his eyes and looked at Amara. Really looked at her. Not the way he'd looked at her yesterday, dismissive, guarded a man talking to the help. He looked at her the way you look at someone who just pulled your child from a burning building. I told you to stay downstairs. Yes, sir, you did. I told you she didn't need another stranger. Yes, sir. I was wrong. Amara didn't respond. She just held Lily a little closer. Don't go, Richard said. His voice was raw, stripped of everything, the authority, the wealth, the control. Just a father, just a man. Whatever I'm paying you, I'll double it, triple it. I don't care. Just don't go. I'm not going anywhere, Mr. Caldwell. He nodded, wiped his face. Then he did something that surprised them both. He reached out and squeezed Amara's hand. Just once. Brief. But it said everything his words couldn't. They sat there together on the floor of a pale blue room, 2 strangers and a sleeping child, while the winter sun moved slowly across the windows. Lily slept and breathed and dreamed whatever 3-year-olds dream about. And somewhere in that silence, not the old silence, not the heavy, suffocating silence of the last 6 months, but a new kind, a gentle kind. The kind that comes after a storm, something began to heal. Not all at once, not completely, but the crack was there. The light was getting in. Downstairs, Mrs. Harper stood at the kitchen counter staring at the frying pan still sitting on the stove. A thin film of butter still coated the surface. She touched it with her finger, still warm. She looked up toward the ceiling, toward the second floor, toward whatever was happening above her. Then she clasped her hands together, closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you, O Lord, thank you." She opened her eyes, wiped them dry, and pulled out the bread, the butter, and the cheese. Because tomorrow was going to come, and that little girl was going to need breakfast. Lily slept for 3 hours that afternoon, the longest she'd slept in weeks. Amara stayed on the floor beside her the entire time, barely moving, afraid that if she shifted even an inch, the spell would break, and Lily would slip back into that terrible silence. Richard didn't leave either. He sat across from them back against the wall, watching his daughter's chest rise and fall. Every few minutes, his eyes drifted to the plate on the floor, 2 triangles gone, 2 remaining, and something between disbelief and agony moved across his face. 2 triangles. That's what it took to bring his daughter back from the edge. Not the $100,000 specialists, not the feeding protocol, not his money. Bread, butter, and cheese. Around 4 o'clock, Lily stirred. Her eyes fluttered open. For a second, she looked confused, like she wasn't sure where she was or how she'd gotten there. Then she saw Amara. And then she saw her father. "Daddy!" Richard was on his knees beside her before she finished the word. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here." Lily looked at him, then at Amara, then back at him. "I ate." His voice shattered. "I know, baby. I saw. 2 pieces. I know. I'm so proud of you." Lily touched her stomach. "My tummy feels funny." Amara leaned in. "That's okay. It's been empty for a while. It just needs to get used to having food again." Lily looked at the plate, the 2 remaining triangles. "Can I have more?" Richard made a sound half laugh, half sob, and pressed his forehead against her hand. "You can have as much as you want. Anything. Anything in this world." "Just grilled cheese." "Then grilled cheese. Every day. Forever." Lily almost smiled. Not quite, but close. Closer than anything Richard had seen in 6 months. Amara stood up slowly. "I'll go make more." "Wait," Lily said. She reached out and caught Amara's hand. "Come back." "I'll be right back, baby. I promise." "You said that before, about promises." "And I kept it, didn't I?" Lily looked at their hands. Her tiny fingers wrapped around 2 of Amara's. She held on for a moment longer, then let go. "Okay." Amara walked out of the room. In the hallway, she pressed her back against the wall and covered her face with both hands. Her whole body trembled. She stood there for a full minute, letting the tears come, letting the weight of what had just happened settle on her shoulders. Then she wiped her face, straightened up, and went downstairs. Mrs. Harper was already at the stove. Pan out, butter ready. She looked at Amara's face and didn't ask questions, just moved aside and let her work. "How many?" Mrs. Harper asked. 2 more. Small, cut into triangles." "Same as before." "Same as before." Mrs. Harper watched her lay the bread in the pan. She asked for more. She asked for more. Mrs. Harper's chin trembled. She turned away and busied herself wiping a counter that didn't need wiping. But Amara could see her shoulders shaking. The butter sizzled. The cheese melted. Amara flipped the sandwich with the same care she'd give a newborn. She slid it onto a plate, cut it into triangles, and carried it upstairs. Richard was sitting on the bed now. Lily was in his lap, her head against his chest. When Amara came in, Lily's eyes went straight to the plate. Is it the same kind? Exact same kind. Lily reached for a triangle. This time there was no hesitation, no trembling. She picked it up and took a bite. Chewed, swallowed, took another bite. Richard watched her eat with an expression that could break stone. His arms tightened around her, and he kissed the top of her head over and over, murmuring into her hair. "That's my girl. That's my brave girl." Lily ate the whole triangle, then half of another one. Then she leaned back against her father's chest and sighed a deep, exhausted, full sigh. "My tummy's full," she said. "That's okay. You did so good." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she looked up at her father. "Daddy, are you crying?" He wiped his face quickly. "No." "Yes, you are. Your face is all wet." "It's just I'm happy, sweetheart. I'm really happy." Lily studied him with those enormous blue eyes. "You haven't been happy in a long time." The words landed like a punch. Richard swallowed hard. "No, I haven't." "Me neither." "I know, baby." Lily reached up and touched his cheek. Her fingers were still a little greasy from the sandwich. She left a tiny butter smear on his face and didn't notice. "Don't be sad, Daddy." He caught her hand and kissed it. "I'm trying. Try harder." Something between a laugh and a cry escaped him. "Yes, ma'am." Amara sat in the chair and watched them. Father and daughter holding each other for the first time in months. Really holding each other. Not the stiff, terrified way Richard had been hovering around Lily, afraid to get too close, afraid to break her. This was real. This was raw. Two broken people leaning on each other because they'd finally remembered they could. Lily yawned. Her eyelids drooped. "Miss Amara?" "Yeah, baby." "Will you be here when I wake up?" "I'll be here." "And tomorrow?" "And tomorrow." Lily closed her eyes. Within minutes she was asleep again. Richard held her, not moving, barely breathing. He looked at Amara over Lily's head. "She ate 4 pieces, he whispered. "In one day." "She did. How do we keep this going? How do we make sure she doesn't—" He couldn't finish. "We show up again tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. We don't push, we don't plan. We just show up." He nodded slowly. Then he stood, Lily cradled in his arms, and laid her in her bed. He pulled the blanket up to her chin, tucked her stuffed rabbit beside her, and stood there looking down at her for a long time. "I'm going to stay with her," he said. "I'll be downstairs if you need anything." "Amara." She stopped at the door. "Thank you," she nodded. "Get some rest, Mr. Caldwell. Tomorrow matters too." She went downstairs, cleaned the kitchen, washed the pan, put everything away. Mrs. Harper had gone home for the evening, and the penthouse was quiet. But it was a different kind of quiet now. Not empty, not dead, just still. The kind of still that comes when something heavy has finally been set down. Amara made herself a cup of coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at her hands. They were shaking. She realized she'd been running on adrenaline for 2 days straight. She took a sip, closed her eyes, and whispered, "Okay, God. Day 1 done. Give me strength for day 2. She caught the last train home, slept 4 hours, came back before sunrise. The next 3 days followed the same pattern. Amara would arrive early, make grilled cheese, bring it upstairs, sit with Lily, eat with her. Each day, Lily ate a little more. Each day, she talked a little more. She asked Amara about her mama. She asked what heaven looked like. She asked if clouds were soft or hard. She asked if dead people could see you from up there. Amara answered every question honestly. Didn't sugarcoat. Didn't dodge. When Lily asked, "Does it ever stop hurting?" Amara said, "No, but it changes. It gets softer. And one day, you realize the hurt is just love with nowhere to go." Lily thought about that for a long time. "Love with nowhere to go," she repeated, like she was storing it somewhere safe. On the 4th morning, Richard was already in the kitchen when Amara arrived.
He looked different, still tired, still worn, but something in his posture had shifted, like a man who'd been holding his breath for months and had finally exhaled. "She asked for breakfast," he said. "She woke up and asked me." Amara set her bag down. "What did she ask for?" "What do you think?" He held up a slice of white bread. "She said, 'Daddy, can Miss Amara make the Sunday sandwich?'" Amara smiled. Really smiled. The first one that had felt real in days. "It's Thursday. I don't think she cares what day it is." "No, I don't think she does." They looked at each other across the kitchen. And for just a second, just a breath, the distance between them felt smaller. Not boss and employee, not billionaire and maid, just two people who loved a little girl and were fighting to keep her alive. Amara made the sandwich, brought it upstairs. This time Lily was sitting up in bed waiting. She grabbed the triangle before Amara even sat down. "I'm hungry," Lily said, and she said it like it was the most amazing discovery in the world. "Then eat, baby." Lily took a big bite. Bigger than any bite she'd taken before. She chewed with her eyes open this time, not squeezed shut. No tears. Just eating. Like a kid eating breakfast. Like it was normal. Amara watched her and felt something unlock in her own chest. A door she'd kept shut for 20 years. She thought about Grandma Ruth. About those mornings in that tiny kitchen on the south side. About how grief gets passed down like a recipe, and how healing does too if you're brave enough to share it. But the healing wasn't complete. Not yet. Because on the fifth night after Lily had eaten dinner, real dinner, not just grilled cheese, she'd tried soup and crackers and 2 bites of applesauce. She said something that changed everything. It was late. Lily was tucked into bed. Amara sat in the chair beside her, and Richard stood by the window scrolling through his phone out of habit, not really reading anything. The room was warm and quiet. Lily's eyes were heavy. "Miss Amara." "Yeah, baby. Can I tell you something?" "You can tell me anything." Lily's voice dropped, small, careful, like she was testing whether the words were safe to say out loud. "The doctors kept trying to make me better." Amara set down the book she'd been reading. "They were trying to help you, sweetie. But I didn't want to be better." The air in the room shifted. Richard looked up from his phone. Amara kept her voice soft. "What do you mean, Lily?" Lily pulled the blanket up to her chin. Her eyes were wide and serious. "Grandma Caldwell came after Mommy's funeral. She told me Mommy went to heaven. She said heaven is beautiful, and Mommy is happy there." "That's right, baby. Your Mommy is in a beautiful place." "So I thought." Lily's voice got even smaller. "If I stopped eating, I could go there too." The room went ice cold. Richard's phone slipped from his hand and hit the floor. He didn't pick it up. He didn't move. He stood by the window like someone had nailed his feet to the floor. Amara's heart stopped. Actually stopped. She felt it freeze in her chest before it kicked back in, hard and painful. "Lily," Amara said carefully, "are you saying you stopped eating because you wanted to go to heaven?" Lily nodded. Matter of fact. The way only a child can deliver words that would destroy an adult. "I thought if I didn't eat for long enough, I would die, and then I could be with Mommy again." Richard made a sound. Not a word, not a cry. Something deeper, something primal. He pressed his fist against his mouth and bent forward like he'd been hit in the stomach. "I tried really hard," Lily continued. Her voice was thin and honest. "But it hurt. My tummy hurt so bad, and my head hurt. And I got so tired I couldn't play or even walk sometimes. But I kept thinking, if I just wait a little more, I'll see her. She'll be there, and she'll pick me up and she'll say, 'I missed you, Lily.' And everything will be okay again." Amara couldn't see. Tears blurred everything. She blinked them away and leaned forward. "Oh, Lily." "I wasn't trying to be bad," Lily said quickly, and her voice cracked for the first time. "I wasn't trying to make everyone sad. I just wanted my Mommy.
I just wanted to hold her hand again." Richard crossed the room. His legs barely held him. He dropped to his knees beside the bed, and his voice came out so broken it didn't sound like him. "Baby, oh God, baby, why didn't you tell me?" Lily looked at her father, and what she said next split him in two. "Because you weren't there, Daddy." He flinched like she'd hit him. "What?" "After Mommy died, you changed." Lily's lip trembled, but she kept going. Like now that the dam was broken, everything was flooding out. "You used to read to me every night. You used to do the funny voices. You used to tuck me in and check for monsters under the bed." "Lily." "But then Mommy died and you stopped. You stopped reading to me. You stopped checking for monsters. You stopped coming to say goodnight." Her chin shook. "You were in the house, Daddy, but you weren't here. You were always in your office, always on the phone, always talking to doctors and lawyers and people I don't know." Richard's hands gripped the edge of the bed. His knuckles were bone white. "I was trying to help you. I was trying to find someone who could... I didn't want someone. I wanted you." The words hit like a freight train. Richard's mouth opened, but nothing came out. He tried again. Nothing. Lily's tears fell freely now. "Every night I waited for you to come tuck me in. I waited, and you didn't come. And I thought maybe you were sad because of me. Maybe looking at me made you think about Mommy, and that made you sadder." "No," Richard choked. "So I thought maybe if I was gone too, you wouldn't be sad anymore. You could stop looking at me with that face." "What face?" "The face you make when you come into my room. Like it hurts you to see me." Richard's entire body collapsed. He put his head on the bed beside Lily's hand and sobbed. Not the controlled, silent tears of the past few days. Deep, guttural, wrecked sobs that shook his shoulders and made the bed frame tremble. The sound of a man who'd just realized he'd almost lost his daughter, not to grief, not to illness, but to his own absence. That face. He could barely get the words out. "That face is because I love you so much it scares me. Every time I look at you, I see your mother, your eyes, your smile. And I think, what if I lose you too? What if something happens and I can't stop it?" "So you stopped coming?" "I stopped." He lifted his head. His face was destroyed. "I stopped because every time I sat with you and you wouldn't respond, it felt like she was dying all over again. And I couldn't take it. I was a coward, Lily. Your daddy was a coward." "You're not a coward." "I am. I ran away from the one person who needed me most. I hid behind doctors and money and work because I didn't know how to just be with you in the pain. I didn't know how to sit with you and not fix it." Lily reached out and touched his wet face. "You're here now." 3 words, simple. A 3-year-old's grace. Richard broke all over again. "Are you going to leave again?" Lily whispered. He grabbed her hand, held it with both of his. "No, never. I swear to you, Lily, never again." "What about when you get sad?" "Then I'll be sad with you, right here, in this room." "What if you have to work?" "Work can wait." "You always say that, and then you go." That one landed hard. Richard closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were different. Clear. Decided. Like a man who'd just burned his old life to the ground and was looking at the ashes. "I know I've said it before, and I know I broke that promise, but this time..." He pressed her hand against his chest over his heart. "Feel that?" Lily nodded. "That beats for you. Only for you. Every day. Every night. And I'm going to prove it to you. Not with words. With showing up. Every bedtime. Every morning. Every meal. I will be here, Lily. Right here." Lily stared at him, searching his face the way she'd searched Amara's that first day. Looking for the truth. Looking for the lie. She was 3 years old, and she'd already learned that people who love you can still leave. "Promise," she whispered. "I promise. Cross your heart." He made an X over his chest. "Cross my heart." Lily looked at Amara. "He's doing the same thing you did." Amara's voice was barely there. "Because he means it the same way." Lily turned back to her father. She studied him for another long moment. Then she opened her arms. Richard pulled her against his chest so tight she squeaked. "Daddy, you're squishing me." He laughed through his tears. The same thing she'd said the night Eleanor died. The same words. "I'm sorry, baby." "It's okay. I like it." She pressed her face into his shoulder. "Daddy." "Yeah, sweetheart." "Miss Amara." "Yeah, baby," Amara said from the chair. "Do you think Mommy wants me in heaven with her?" The question filled the room like smoke. Amara felt it in her bones. She leaned forward and took Lily's hand. "No, baby. I think your mama is watching you from heaven right now. And I think she's crying not because she's sad but because she's so proud of you. Proud of me. You ate today. You talked today. You told us the truth even though it was scary. That's the bravest thing I've ever seen anyone do. And your mama, she wants you to keep being brave. She wants you to grow up, to laugh, to play, to eat Sunday grilled cheese every single week." Lily almost smiled. "Even on Thursdays, especially on Thursdays." "But I miss her so much." "I know, and you'll always miss her, every single day. But here's what my grandma told me, and I've never forgotten it." Amara squeezed her hand. "Missing someone and living your life, those two things can happen at the same time. You don't have to choose." Lily looked at her father. "Is that true, Daddy?" Richard nodded. He couldn't speak. His jaw was clenched so tight the muscles in his face twitched. "So I can miss Mommy and still eat grilled cheese?" "Yes, baby." "And I can miss her and still play?" "Yes." "And I can miss her and still be happy sometimes?" Richard's voice cracked wide open. "Your mommy would want you to be happy. That's all she ever wanted." Lily was quiet for a long time. She leaned against her father Amara's hand still in hers, and she seemed to be working something out in her head. The way children do, seriously carefully with more wisdom than adults give them credit for. "Okay," she finally said. "Okay," Richard asked. "Okay, I'll stay." 2 words. The most important 2 words Richard Caldwell had ever heard. More important than any contract, any deal, any number with any number of zeros. His daughter had chosen to live. He pressed his lips to her forehead and held them there. His tears fell into her hair. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." "Daddy, you're getting my hair wet." He laughed, really laughed. For the first time in 6 months. It came out ragged and broken and beautiful. Lily yawned. The enormity of what she'd just said and done was settling on her small body like a heavy blanket. Her eyes were closing. "Daddy?" "Yeah, sweetheart." "Will you stay with me tonight?" "Every night, starting right now." "And Miss Amara?" "I'll be right here too, baby." "Both of you." "Both of us." Lily smiled. Small, tired, but real. The first real smile in 6 months. "Good." She closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed. Her grip on Amara's hand loosened, but didn't let go. Within minutes, she was asleep. Richard and Amara sat there in the dim light on opposite sides of the bed, with a sleeping child between them. Neither spoke for a long time. The only sound was Lily's breathing and the distant hum of the city below. Finally, Richard spoke. His voice was raw, scraped clean of everything he used to hide behind. "She was trying to die. Yes. My 3-year-old daughter was starving herself to death because she thought it was the only way to see her mother again. Yes. And she didn't tell anyone because she thought I didn't want her anymore. She thought your grief meant she was a burden. Children read silence differently than we do. Richard pressed both palms against his eyes. I did this. I caused this. I was so busy trying to save her from the outside that I left her completely alone on the inside. You were drowning too, Mr. Caldwell. That's not an excuse. No, it's not. But it's the truth. You lost your wife. You were trying to survive. And you survived the only way you knew how, by working, by controlling, by calling experts and writing checks. That's not evil. It's just human. Human almost killed my daughter. Amara was quiet. Because he was right. And lying to him wouldn't help. What do I do now? He asked. How do I fix what I broke? You can't fix it. You can only show up. Day after day, meal after meal. You sit with her. You read to her. You tuck her in. You check for monsters under the bed. And you don't stop. Not when it's hard. Not when she pushes you away. Not when you're tired or sad or scared. You just keep showing up. That's it. That's everything. Richard looked at Lily. Her face was peaceful, relaxed in a way he hadn't seen in months. One hand tucked under her cheek, the other still holding Amara's fingers. My mother told her about heaven, he said quietly. After the funeral, she thought she was comforting her, told her Eleanor was in a beautiful place, that she was happy that she was watching over us. She meant well. She gave a 3-year-old a roadmap to die. The words were brutal, but they were true. An adult's comfort had become a child's death plan. No one could have predicted it. No one would have thought a toddler could reason like that, could take a beautiful idea about heaven and turn it into a logical argument for starving herself. But grief doesn't follow logic. And neither do children. We need to get her a therapist, Richard said. A real one, not a feeding specialist. Someone who understands child grief. Someone who can help her process this. Yes. And I need... He stopped, swallowed. I need help too, don't I? Amara looked at him. What do you think? He almost smiled. I think I've been pretending to be fine for 6 months, and I'm about as far from fine as a person can get. That's a start. He nodded slowly. Will you be here tomorrow? I know I already asked you to stay, but I need to hear it again. I'll be here tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. She needs you. She needs her father. I'm just the woman who makes grilled cheese. You're a lot more than that, and you know it. Amara looked away, because if she held his gaze any longer, she'd start crying again, and she'd done enough crying for one day. For one lifetime, really. Get some rest, Mr. Caldwell. She'll want breakfast early. Richard. She looked back at him. Call me Richard. I think we're past Mr. Caldwell at this point. She held his eyes for a moment. Okay. Richard. He settled into the chair beside Lily's bed. Amara sat in hers. Neither of them left. The night stretched out around them, quiet and heavy, with everything that had been said and everything that still needed to be said. Around midnight, Amara felt a hand touch hers. She looked down. Lily had reached out in her sleep and found Amara's fingers again. Held on. Like even in her dreams, she needed to know she wasn't alone. Amara closed her hand around those tiny fingers and held tight. On the other side of the bed, Richard watched them. His daughter and this woman. The woman who'd come from a world so different from his, it might as well have been another planet. Who'd walked into his house and seen what he was too blind, too broken, too proud to see. Who'd done with bread and butter what all his money couldn't. He leaned back in the chair and closed his eyes. And for the first time in 6 months, Richard Caldwell didn't dream about Eleanor's car on an icy road. He didn't dream about doctors or hospitals or 48-hour deadlines. He dreamed about a kitchen, warm, bright, the smell of butter in a pan, and his daughter's voice saying, "I'm hungry, Daddy." He woke up with tears on his face and a hand on his arm. Lily was standing beside his chair, blanket wrapped around her shoulders, squinting up at him in the gray morning light. "Daddy, wake up." "I'm up. I'm up. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, I'm hungry." He stared at her. Then he pulled her into his arms and held her so tight she squirmed. "Daddy, you're squishing me again." "I know, baby. I know." Across the room, Amara was already standing, already smiling, already heading for the door. "I'll go start the pan," she said. The grilled cheese became a ritual. Every morning, Amara arrived before sunrise. Every morning she turned on the stove, dropped butter in the pan, and laid down the bread. And every morning before the cheese had even started to melt, she'd hear small footsteps on the stairs. Lily would appear in the kitchen doorway, blanket around her shoulders, rubbing her eyes, and say the same thing. "Is it ready yet?" "Almost, baby. 2 more minutes." "That's what you said yesterday." "And was it worth the wait?" Lily would climb onto her stool and watch the butter sizzle. Yes. The first week was careful. Lily ate small portions, grilled cheese in the morning, soup at lunch but only if Amara sat with her, crackers and apple slices in the afternoon. She still wouldn't eat dinner without someone beside her. If Amara or Richard left the room, she'd stop. Set the food down. Wait. "She's eating with conditions," Dr. Nguyen said. She was the new therapist, a child grief specialist Richard had found after that night. She came to the penthouse 3 times a week, sat on the floor with Lily, and let her talk when she wanted to, and stay silent when she didn't. That's completely normal. She associates eating with connection, with safety. She's not ready to do it alone yet. "Will she be?" Richard asked. They were standing in the hallway outside Lily's room while Amara read to her inside. "Yes, but it takes time. And consistency. She needs to trust that the people she loves won't disappear." Richard flinched. Dr. Nguyen noticed. "That's not a criticism, Mr. Caldwell. Children who lose a parent often develop what we call abandonment sensitivity. Every departure feels like a potential loss. You leaving for work, Mrs. Harper going home at night, even Amara going downstairs to Lily. Each one is a small test. Will they come back, or will they disappear like Mommy did? So what do I do? What you're already doing. Show up. Follow through. When you say you'll be there at bedtime, be there. When you say you'll read to her, read to her. Every kept promise is a brick in the wall she's rebuilding." Richard nodded. He'd started keeping a list on his phone. Not of business meetings or investor calls. Of promises he'd made to Lily. Read before bed. Check. Breakfast together. Check. Walk to the park after lunch. Check. He treated each one like a contract. Non-negotiable. Unbreakable. By the second week, Lily was eating 3 meals a day. Not always grilled cheese. She tried oatmeal and made a face. She ate chicken nuggets and declared them okay but not as good as Miss Amara's sandwiches. She drank orange juice again. She asked for strawberries. "Daddy, did you know strawberries have seeds on the outside?" "I did know that." "That's weird. Everything else has seeds on the inside." "That's a very good observation. Miss Amara told me. She knows things about fruit." Richard looked at Amara across the kitchen. She was washing dishes, pretending not to listen, but the corner of her mouth was turned up. "She does seem to know a lot," Richard said. By the 3rd week, Lily was talking. Not just about food, about everything. She talked about her preschool friends. She talked about the pigeons on the balcony. She talked about dreams she'd had and questions she had about the world and things she wanted to do when she grew up. "I want to be a chef," she announced one morning. "A chef," Richard said. "That's a great choice." "Or a doctor. But not the kind that came to our house. The kind that helps animals. A veterinarian." "A veterinarian, yes." "That's a big word." "Miss Amara taught me. She teaches me big words every day. Yesterday I learned magnificent. It means really, really good." Richard looked at Amara again. She was buttering bread head down, smiling. What else has Miss Amara taught you? Lily counted on her fingers. Magnificent, courageous. That means brave, resilient. That means you keep going even when it's hard. Resilient, Richard repeated softly. She said I'm the most resilient person she knows. Lily beamed. Is that true, Daddy? Richard's throat tightened. Yeah, sweetheart, that's absolutely true. The color came back to Lily's cheeks. The weight came back slowly, pound by pound. Her arms didn't look so fragile anymore. Her eyes weren't hollow. She started running again through the hallways around the kitchen island, down to the lobby, to say hi to the doorman who teared up the first time he saw her smile. And she started laughing. That was the part that undid Richard every time. The first time she laughed, really laughed, the kind of belly laugh that takes over a 3-year-old's whole body, he had to leave the room. He stood in the hallway and pressed his forehead against the wall and cried. Because he'd forgotten what it sounded like, and because he'd almost never heard it again. Mrs. Harper noticed the change too. She started cooking again, real cooking, not just trays of food destined for the trash. She made Lily's favorites from before: mac and cheese, chicken soup, banana bread on Fridays. She ate the whole bowl. Mrs. Harper told Amara one afternoon, holding up an empty soup bowl like it was a trophy. Every last drop. Good girl. Good Lord is what I say. Good Lord and good grilled cheese. Amara laughed. Mrs. Harper laughed too. And for the first time in months, the penthouse sounded like a place where people lived instead of a place where people were waiting to die. Richard changed too, and that was the part no one expected. He canceled 3 overseas trips, pushed back a merger he'd been working on for a year, told his assistant to clear his evenings. Every night without exception, he was home by 6. He read to Lily before bed. Not business articles or emails on his phone while she fell asleep. Real books. Picture books. He did the funny voices again, the pirate voice, the princess voice, the growly bear voice that made Lily shriek with laughter. Daddy, do the frog. Which frog? The French frog. Richard croaked in a French accent. Lily dissolved into giggles. Amara stood in the doorway, trying not to laugh, failing completely. Your frog needs work, she said. Excuse me, my frog is magnificent. Lily pointed at Amara. She taught me that word. After Lily fell asleep, Richard would come downstairs. And that was when things got complicated. It started small. He'd pour himself a drink and sit at the kitchen counter while Amara cleaned up. They'd talk. About Lily at first, her progress, what she'd said in therapy, what she ate, what she asked about. Then the conversations got longer, deeper. Richard told her about Eleanor, how they'd met at a charity gala, how she'd spilled wine on his shoes, and instead of apologizing, she'd laughed and said, well, they were ugly shoes anyway. How he'd fallen in love with her that same night. She sounds amazing, Amara said. She was. She was the one person who wasn't impressed by any of this. He gestured around the kitchen. She used to say, Richard, you could lose everything tomorrow, and I'd still want to eat cold pizza with you on the floor. She kept me human. And when she died, he was quiet for a long time. I stopped being human. I became a machine. A very expensive, very efficient machine that ran on coffee and fear and couldn't look at his own daughter without falling apart. Amara dried a plate slowly. You're not a machine now. No. Now I'm a man sitting in his kitchen at 10 o'clock at night talking to... He stopped. To what? He looked at her, held her eyes. To the only person in my life who tells me the truth. The air shifted between them. Amara felt it. He felt it. She looked away first. I should get going. Last train's at 11. Right, of course. She hung up the towel, grabbed her bag. He walked her to the service entrance the way he'd started doing. The first time he'd said it was because the building was confusing at night. It wasn't confusing. They both knew that. Amara. She turned. Lily's birthday is next month. She'll be 4. I was thinking of doing something small. Just the house. Maybe a cake. That sounds nice. She'd want you there. Not as... He paused. Not as staff. As family. The word hung between them. Family. I'll be there, she said. Good. Good night. Good night, Richard. She left. He stood in the doorway and watched the elevator doors close. Then he pressed his forehead against the wall, the same way he'd done the day Lily laughed for the first time, and whispered, "What are you doing, Richard? What the hell are you doing?" He knew the answer. He just wasn't ready to say it out loud. 3 weeks before Lily's birthday, Richard's mother came to visit. Margaret Caldwell arrived in a black town car, wearing pearls and a coat that cost more than most people's monthly salary. She hadn't been to the penthouse since the funeral. She'd called every week, sent gifts, offered to take Lily to her estate in Connecticut. Richard had declined every time. "My God, Richard, you look exhausted," she said as she walked in. "Hello, Mother. Is the girl eating?" "Her name is Lily, and yes, she's eating." "Well, thank heaven. I've been worried sick." She set her purse on the counter and looked around. "Where's Mrs. Harper?" "Day off." "And who's watching Lily?" "Amara's with her. They're upstairs reading." "Amara. The new caregiver." Margaret raised an eyebrow. "The one from the temp agency." "She's not a temp anymore. She's been here 2 months." 2 months? And this is the one who... Margaret waved her hand vaguely. "The one who got her eating again." "Yes, Mother, she's the one." "How did she manage that when 9 professionals couldn't?" Richard looked at her. "Because she understood what Lily was going through. And the professionals didn't. Not the way she did." Margaret studied his face the way she always did, with precision, with judgment, with the particular scrutiny of a woman who'd spent 50 years reading boardrooms and dinner parties. "I'd like to meet her," she said. "Fine." He called upstairs. A minute later, Amara came down holding Lily's hand. Lily was wearing a yellow dress and had a book tucked under her arm. "Grandma!" Lily ran to Margaret and hugged her legs. Margaret's face softened the way it only did for Lily. She knelt down and held her. "Oh, my darling, look at you. You look wonderful." "I am wonderful. Miss Amara says I'm magnificent." Margaret looked up. At Amara. Standing there in her plain clothes, her work apron still on, her hands clasped in front of her. The look lasted 3 seconds, but Amara felt every one of them. "So you're Amara?" Margaret said, standing. "Yes, ma'am. It's nice to meet you." "My son tells me you've been very helpful." "Lily's done all the hard work. I just make grilled cheese." Margaret's mouth twitched. Not a smile. Something else. "I'm sure you do." Lily tugged Margaret's hand. "Grandma, come see my drawing. I made a picture of our family." They went upstairs. Richard stayed in the kitchen. So did Amara. The silence was heavy. "She doesn't like me," Amara said quietly. "She doesn't know you." "She doesn't want to know me. There's a difference." Richard didn't deny it. He poured himself coffee. "My mother is she has ideas about how things should be. Ideas about who should be in your kitchen." He looked at her. She looked back. Steady. Not angry. Not hurt. Just clear. The way she always was. "I'm not ashamed of you being here," he said. "You need to know that." "I didn't say you were." "But you're thinking it." "I'm thinking your mother looked at me the way people have looked at me my whole life. Like I'm out of place. Like I'm tolerated, not welcomed." Richard set down his cup. "You are not tolerated in this house. You are the reason my daughter is alive." "Your mother doesn't know that." "Then I'll tell her." "It won't matter." "Why not?" Amara looked at him with something he hadn't seen before. Sadness. Not for herself. For him. "Because this isn't about whether I'm good enough, Richard. It's about whether I'm the right kind." And in your mother's world, I'm not." The words landed hard. Because they were true. And because Richard had spent his entire life in that world and knew exactly what she meant. He walked around the counter and stood in front of her. Close. Closer than he'd ever stood. "You're the right kind," he said. "For this family. For Lily. For—" He stopped. "For what?" He held her eyes. "For me." Amara's breath caught. She shook her head slowly. "Richard, I know. I know the timing is wrong, and the situation is complicated, and there's 100 reasons this doesn't make sense. 101. But I'm not a man who says things he doesn't mean. Not anymore. Lily taught me that. You taught me that." He took her hand. "Something changed in this house when you walked in. Not just for her. For me. I'm your employee. Then I'll fire you and hire you back as something else." She pulled her hand away. Not roughly. Gently. "That's not funny. I'm not being funny. Richard, your mother is upstairs. Your wife died 7 months ago. Your daughter just started eating again. This is not the time to— When is the time? When is it ever the time? My wife died on an ordinary Tuesday night. She went to pick up cold medicine and never came back. If I learned anything from that, it's that there is no right time. There's only now." Amara stared at him. Her eyes were full. Her jaw was tight. She was holding herself together, the way she always did, with discipline, with strength, with the kind of composure that comes from a lifetime of having to be twice as strong just to be seen as equal. "I can't be your rebound," she said. "I can't be the maid who made your daughter eat and then became convenient." "Convenient?" Richard's voice cracked. "You think this is convenient? I lie awake every night thinking about you. I count the hours until you walk through that door. I watch you with my daughter, and I see everything I want my life to be. There is nothing convenient about falling in love with someone who has every reason to say no." The kitchen was silent. The clock ticked. Somewhere upstairs, Lily laughed at something Margaret said. "I need time," Amara said. "Take all the time you need. And space. Whatever you need. And you need to be sure this isn't grief talking. Because grief makes us reach for the nearest warm thing, and I won't be someone's warm thing." Richard nodded. "That's fair. I'm serious. I know you are. It's one of the things I love about you." She closed her eyes. "Stop saying that." "Okay, for now." She opened her eyes. They were wet. "I'm going to go finish the dishes." "Amara." "What?" "I'm not going anywhere. Whatever you decide, however long it takes, I'm here." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned and walked to the sink. Richard stood there watching her, his heart pounding. Then he went upstairs to find his mother. Margaret was in Lily's room looking at the drawing, the one with 4 figures holding hands and a 5th one in the clouds. She was holding it carefully, and when Richard walked in, he saw something on her face he hadn't expected. Pain. "She drew her mother in the clouds," Margaret said. "Yes. And this woman, the maid, she drew her as family. She's not just a maid mother." Margaret set the drawing down. Lily had run to the bathroom. They were alone. "Richard, I need to say something, and I need you to hear me." "Go ahead." "Eleanor was my daughter-in-law. I loved her. I still love her. And every time I look at that child, I see Eleanor's face, and it breaks my heart." "I know." "So when I walk into this house and I see another woman, a woman who is not Eleanor in my granddaughter's life, in her drawings, in her heart—" Margaret's voice trembled. "It's hard. I understand that. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've moved on very quickly. I haven't moved on. I'll never move on from Eleanor. But I've moved forward. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Lily was dying, Mother. She was starving herself to death. And Amara saved her. Not the doctors, not the money. a woman with nothing who sat on the floor and shared a sandwich. If you can't respect that, then I don't know what to tell you. Margaret was quiet for a long time. She looked at the drawing again, at the fifth figure in the clouds, at Eleanor watching over them. She's your employee, Richard. I'm aware. People will talk. Let them. The board will have opinions. The board can run itself. Margaret studied him. You're in love with her. Richard didn't blink. I am. Does she know? I told her tonight. And? She told me to be sure it's not grief. Margaret almost smiled. Almost. Smart woman. The smartest I've met since Eleanor. Margaret picked up her purse, adjusted her coat, walked to the door. Then she stopped and turned back. Richard. Yes. Your father, when he died, I was alone for 5 years before I even considered having dinner with another man. 5 years. And people still talked. I remember. What I'm saying is... She paused, chose her words. Whatever you decide, make sure it's because you love her. Not because she filled a hole. Because those are two different things, and only one of them lasts. I know the difference. I hope so. She looked toward the hallway. Bring Lily to Connecticut for Thanksgiving, both of you, and... She hesitated. If Miss Jenkins would like to come, she's welcome. Richard stared at his mother. That was as close to approval as Margaret Caldwell had ever given anyone. I'll ask her. Good. Margaret walked out. At the elevator, she pressed the button, then said over her shoulder, The grilled cheese. I'd like the recipe. It's butter bread and American cheese, Mother. American cheese. She said it like someone had asked her to eat a tire. Well, for Lily. The elevator doors closed. Richard stood in the hallway and leaned against the wall. He let out a breath he felt like he'd been holding for 7 months. Back in the kitchen, Amara was at the sink, hands in warm water, staring out the window at the city lights. She heard Richard come in, but didn't turn around. He picked up a towel and started drying the dishes she'd washed. Side by side, in silence, the way they'd done every night for weeks. Except tonight, the silence had a different shape. It was full instead of empty. Heavy with words already spoken and decisions not yet made. They worked through the stack without talking. When the last plate was dried and put away, Amara hung up her apron. I should go. I know. She picked up her bag, walked to the service entrance, stopped with her hand on the door. Richard? Yeah. She didn't turn around. It's not grief. What I feel. I need you to know that. I've been fighting it for weeks because I thought it was wrong because of the situation, because of who I am and who you are, because of everything. But it's not grief, and it's not convenience, and it's not because you're the first person who's been kind to me. Then what is it? She turned. Her eyes were full but steady, the strongest, most certain eyes he'd ever seen. It's love, plain and simple, the kind that doesn't care about zip codes or bank accounts or what your mother thinks. Her voice shook but didn't break. I love your daughter like she's my own, and I love you because you let yourself break so you could heal, because you showed up, because you became the father she needed. That's who I fell in love with, not the billionaire, the man who sits on the kitchen floor and does a French frog voice. Richard laughed, a real laugh, the kind that breaks through tears. So yes, Amara said, I need time, and I need you to be sure, but I also need you to know my answer isn't no. My answer is not yet, and not yet is a long way from never. She opened the door and stepped into the hallway. Amara. She looked back. Whenever you're ready, I'll be right here. She held his eyes. Then she smiled, small, warm, real, and walked to the elevator. Richard stood in the doorway until the doors closed. Then he walked back to the kitchen, sat down at the counter, and pressed his hands flat against the surface. His heart was pounding. His eyes were wet. But for the first time in 7 months, the ache in his chest wasn't grief.
It was hope. Upstairs, Lily stirred in her bed. She'd been asleep for an hour, but she rolled over and mumbled something soft. If anyone had been listening, they would have heard her say, "Good night, Mommy. Good night, Miss Amara. Good night, Daddy." Then she smiled in her sleep and pulled her stuffed rabbit closer. And the penthouse was quiet. Not the old quiet. Not the suffocating, empty dead quiet that had filled every room for months. This was a different silence. A living one. The kind that holds its breath not in fear, but in anticipation. Like a house that knows something beautiful is about to happen and is simply waiting for the people inside to be brave enough to let it. Lily turned 4 on a Saturday in September. Amara arrived at the penthouse at 6 in the morning, carrying a bag of party supplies she'd bought with her own money. Dollar store streamers, a pack of balloons, a hand-painted banner that read, "Happy Birthday, Lily," in purple and gold. She'd stayed up until midnight, making it, painting each letter carefully on butcher paper, spread across her kitchen floor, because she wanted it to be perfect. Not expensive. Perfect. Mrs. Harper was already in the kitchen when she walked in, flour on her apron, 3 mixing bowls on the counter. "You're baking," Amara said. "Chocolate cake. Eleanor's recipe." Mrs. Harper held up a stained index card covered in handwriting. "She gave it to me the year Lily was born. Said it was the only thing worth passing down from her mother." Amara looked at the card. The handwriting was slanted and quick, the kind of writing that belongs to someone who was always in motion. A woman she'd never met but felt like she knew. "She had beautiful handwriting," Amara said. "She had beautiful everything." Mrs. Harper's voice wavered, then steadied. "Now help me crack these eggs." They worked side by side. Amara cracked eggs. Mrs. Harper measured flour. Neither of them spoke for a while, but the silence was comfortable, the kind shared by 2 women who'd been through a war together and come out the other side. Amara. "Yeah. I want to say something, and I don't want you to argue with me." "That's a dangerous way to start." "You saved this family." Amara shook her head. "Mrs. Harper, I said don't argue. I've been in this house for 12 years. I watched Eleanor and Richard fall in love. I held Lily the day she was born. I've seen the best and worst of this family, and I'm telling you, when you walked through that service entrance, this house was a grave. Richard was a ghost. Lily was disappearing. And I was just standing here watching it happen, too old and too scared to do anything about it. You did everything you could. I made trays of food she wouldn't eat. That's not everything. That's routine." Mrs. Harper turned to her. "What you did wasn't routine. What you did was brave. Reckless, maybe. Certainly insubordinate. But brave." Amara smiled. "Is this a compliment or a performance review?" "Both." Mrs. Harper squeezed her hand. "You belong here. Whatever happens between you and Richard, and don't look at me like that. I have eyes. Whatever happens, you belong in this family. Lily knows it. Richard knows it. And Eleanor—" Her voice cracked. "I think Eleanor knows it too." Amara couldn't speak for a moment. She just squeezed Mrs. Harper's hand back and blinked hard until the kitchen stopped blurring. "Now," Mrs. Harper said, wiping her eyes with her apron. "Are you going to help me frost this cake, or are you going to stand there crying?" "Both." "Fair enough." By 10 o'clock, the living room was transformed. Streamers hung from the ceiling. Balloons crowded every corner. The hand-painted banner stretched across the window, catching the morning light. Mrs. Harper's chocolate cake sat on the kitchen table, frosted in white with 4 purple candles. Richard came downstairs in jeans and a sweater. Amara almost didn't recognize him. She'd never seen him in anything but a suit. He stopped at the bottom of the stairs and looked around. At the streamers, the balloons, the banner. His eyes lingered on the banner, the hand-painted letters, slightly uneven, clearly made by someone who'd spent hours on it. "You made this," he said to Amara. "Last night. It's perfect. It's crooked. It's perfect," he said again, and the way he looked at her when he said it wasn't about the banner at all. The doorbell rang at 11.
6 kids from Lily's preschool arrived with their parents. Richard shook hands and made small talk, and Amara watched him do it. Watched him smile and laugh and carry Lily on his shoulders. Watched him get down on his knees to talk to a 4-year-old guest who was scared of the balloons. Watched him be the father Lily had begged him to be. She thought about the man she'd met 3 months ago. The one with hollow eyes and a sharp voice who'd told her to stay downstairs. Who'd gripped the kitchen counter so hard his knuckles turned white. Who'd said, "How long do you think you'll last?" That man was gone. Or maybe not gone. Maybe just buried under all the grief and fear waiting for someone to dig him out. Lily was everywhere. Running. Laughing. Showing her friends her room, her toys, her drawings. She grabbed Amara's hand and pulled her from group to group. "This is Miss Amara. She makes the best grilled cheese in the world. She taught me the word magnificent. She's my best friend." One of the mothers looked at Amara, and then at Richard, and then back at Amara. The look lasted a fraction of a second, but Amara caught it. She'd been catching looks like that her whole life. She didn't flinch. She just smiled and said, "It's nice to meet you." After the guests left, the penthouse was quiet again. Wrapping paper on the floor, half-eaten cake on the counter. Lily sat in the middle of the living room surrounded by new toys she'd already abandoned in favor of the one thing she cared about, the drawing she'd been working on all week. She folded it carefully and carried it to Amara. "This is for you." Amara knelt down and took it. Unfolded it slowly. 4 figures holding hands. A tall man with brown hair. A little girl with yellow hair. A woman with dark brown skin. And Mrs. Harper, shorter than the others, with white hair and a big smile. Above them, drawn in blue crayon, was a sky full of clouds. And in the clouds, a 5th figure. A woman with wings and yellow hair like lilies, smiling down at all of them. At the top, in Lily's careful, wobbly handwriting, "My family." Amara's breath left her body. "That's Mommy," Lily said, pointing to the figure in the clouds. "She's in heaven, but she's watching us. I see her baby." "And that's you." Lily pointed to the dark-skinned figure. "You're holding my hand." "I am. And that's Daddy, and Mrs. Harper. And see, we're all smiling, because we're happy now." Amara pulled Lily onto her lap and held her tight. Tears ran down her face, and she didn't try to stop them. "This is the most beautiful thing anyone's ever given me. Really. Really. More beautiful than flowers. More beautiful than anything." Lily looked up at her. "Miss Amara." "Yeah, baby. I'm glad you came here." "Me too, sweetheart. Me too. I think Mommy sent you." Amara kissed her forehead. "I think she did too." Lily leaned against her chest and closed her eyes. "Good. Because I asked her to." "You asked her? Every night?" "After Mommy died, I used to talk to her before I went to sleep. I asked her to send someone who understood, someone who wouldn't try to fix me, someone who would just stay." Amara couldn't breathe. She held Lily closer and rocked her gently and let the tears fall into her hair. Across the room, Richard stood in the doorway. He'd heard every word. His hand was pressed against his chest over his heart, and his face was wet. That night, after Lily was asleep, Amara sat on the balcony alone. The city stretched out below her, a million lights against the dark. She held Lily's drawing in her lap, running her fingers over the crayon lines. The door opened behind her. Richard came out with 2 cups of coffee. He handed her one and sat down beside her. "She drew you as family," he said. "I know. She asked Eleanor to send you." "I heard." He was quiet for a moment. "Do you believe that Eleanor sent you?" Amara looked at the drawing. At the figure in the clouds with wings and yellow hair and a smile. "I believe something brought me here. Whether it was God or Eleanor or just a temp agency with good timing, I don't know. But I was supposed to be in this house. I feel that in my bones." "So do I."
They sat in silence for a while. Then Richard reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Black velvet. He held it in his palm and looked at it. Amara saw it, and her whole body went still. "Richard, I know what you said. Not yet. And I respect that. But I need to tell you something, and I need you to let me finish before you say anything." She nodded. 3 months ago, I was the most powerful man I knew, and the most useless father alive. My daughter was starving to death 10 feet away from me, and I couldn't reach her. I called every expert, spent every dollar, pulled every string. Nothing worked, and then you showed up with a frying pan and a grilled cheese, and you did what all my money couldn't. Richard, let me finish, please. She pressed her lips together and nodded again. You didn't just save Lily, you saved me. You walked into this house and you saw through every wall I'd built. You told me the truth when everyone else was too afraid to. You sat with my daughter in the dark and you told her it was okay to hurt. You held her while she broke. And then you looked at me, a man who'd abandoned his own child, and you didn't judge me. You said, "You're here now." 3 words. And those 3 words brought me back to life. His voice was shaking. He opened the box. Inside was a ring. Simple. Elegant. A single diamond on a gold band. I bought this 2 weeks ago. I've been carrying it in my pocket every day waiting for the right moment. And tonight, watching you hold my daughter, watching her call you family, watching you cry over a crayon drawing, I realized there's no right moment. There's just now. He turned to her. I'm not asking you to replace Eleanor. No one could. I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. I'm asking you to be exactly who you are, the woman who shows up before sunrise, who makes grilled cheese like it's a prayer, who taught my daughter the word resilient, and then showed her what it looks like. He took her hand. Amara Jenkins, I love you. Not because of what you did for Lily, because of who you are. I love your strength. I love your honesty. I love the way you refuse to let anyone, including me, get away with being less than they can be. Tears poured down Amara's face. She didn't wipe them away. Will you marry me? She looked at the ring, then at him, then at the city spread out below them, all those lights, all those lives, all those people carrying their own grief and their own hope and their own unanswered prayers. Your mother will have a heart attack, she said. Richard laughed, a real full laugh that echoed off the balcony and disappeared into the night. My mother told me to bring you to Thanksgiving. She did not. She also asked for the grilled cheese recipe. Now I know you're lying. I swear on everything. He squeezed her hand. She said, and I quote, if Miss Jenkins would like to come, she's welcome. That's not exactly a ringing endorsement. From my mother, that's practically a standing ovation. Amara laughed through her tears. Then she went quiet. She looked at the ring again, touched it with one finger. The diamond caught the city light and threw tiny sparks across her hand. I grew up on the south side, she said softly. My mother died when I was 7. My grandma raised me on a nurse's aide salary. I took the bus to school. I wore hand-me-downs. I got my first job at 15 bussing tables at a diner on Halsted Street. I know. I'm saying this ring, this penthouse, this life. I didn't grow up in this world, Richard. I don't know the rules. I don't know which fork to use at your mother's dinner table. I don't know how to talk to your business partners, or your board members, or the parents at Lily's preschool who looked at me today like I was the help. You are the help. You're the only help that mattered. That's not what I mean. I know what you mean. Richard moved closer. And I'm telling you, I don't need someone who knows which fork to use. I need someone who knows which sandwich to make. I need someone who tells me the truth. I need someone who sits on the floor with my daughter and says, missing someone and living your life can happen at the same time. I need you. Amara closed her eyes. She thought about Grandma Ruth, about what she would say if she could see this moment. She could almost hear her voice, that deep, warm, no-nonsense voice that had guided her through every storm. Baby girl, when God opens a door, you don't stand there asking if you deserve to walk through it. You walk through it, and you say thank you. Amara opened her eyes. Yes. Richard blinked.
Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll be Lily's. Yes, I'll eat Thanksgiving dinner with your mother and use the wrong fork and not apologize for it. He slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly. He pulled her close, and she pressed her face into his shoulder, and they held each other while the city glowed below them and the wind moved across the balcony, and somewhere in a place neither of them could see, but both of them could feel something shifted. Something settled. Something that had been broken for a very long time finally clicked into place. "I can't believe this is real," she whispered. "Neither can I." What do we tell Lily? The truth. That sometimes after you lose someone, love finds a way back. She's 4. That's a lot of philosophy for a 4-year-old. You taught her the word resilient. I think she can handle it. The next morning, Lily came into the kitchen and found them making pancakes together. Richard was at the stove, Amara beside him, and they were holding hands between flips. Lily climbed onto her stool and watched them for a long moment. Her eyes moved from their faces to their hands, to the ring on Amara's finger. She didn't miss anything. She never did. "Are you going to get married?" she asked. Richard set down the spatula, knelt beside her stool, so they were eye to eye. "How would you feel about that?" Lily thought about it, seriously. The way she thought about everything now, with that careful old soul gravity that made her seem like a tiny philosopher in a yellow nightgown. "Will Miss Amara live here?" "Yes. Every day. Every single day." "Will she still make grilled cheese on Sundays?" Amara crouched down beside Richard. "Forever and always." Lily looked at them both. "And Mommy, she'll still be in the clouds watching us." "Always, baby," Richard said. "She'll always be watching. And she won't be sad that we're happy." Amara took her hand. "Your mommy wants you to be happy, Lily. That's what mamas want more than anything." Lily processed this. Then she hopped down from the stool and hugged them both at the same time, one arm around each of their necks, pulling them together. "Okay," she said. "Then yes. Yeah. But I have one rule." "What's that?" "I get to be the flower girl." "Deal." 3 months later, they got married. It was a small ceremony, 20 people. A room at the Art Institute overlooking the lake. White flowers, soft music, nothing extravagant. Richard had offered to rent a ballroom, hire a 100-piece orchestra, fly in guests from 3 continents. Amara had said, "I want 20 people who love us and a good piece of cake." So that's what they did. Lily was the flower girl. She wore a white dress with a purple sash, purple, because she'd decided it was her favorite color and had refused to negotiate. She carried a basket of rose petals and scattered them down the aisle with the focus and intensity of a surgeon. Amara's cousin Denise stood beside her as maid of honor, crying before the ceremony even started. "I told you not to touch anything expensive," she whispered. "And you went and touched his heart." "Shut up, Denise. I'm so proud of you. Shut up and hand me my bouquet." Mrs. Harper sat in the front row. She wore a blue dress she'd bought specifically for the occasion and cried through the entire ceremony without making a single sound. 12 years of watching this family, the joy, the tragedy, the impossible resurrection, and here she was watching it bloom again. Margaret Caldwell sat beside her. She wore pearls. She sat with perfect posture. And when the officiant asked if anyone objected, she didn't move. She didn't speak. She just reached over and took Mrs. Harper's hand and held it. Later at the reception, Margaret approached Amara. She was holding a glass of champagne and wearing an expression Amara had never seen on her face before. Something almost soft. "Amara?" "Mrs. Caldwell." "Margaret. You may call me Margaret now." "Okay, Margaret." Margaret looked at her for a long moment. "I owe you an apology." You don't have to. Yes, I do. The first time I met you, I judged you. I looked at you and I saw what I was raised to see. And I was wrong. Amara held her gaze, didn't flinch, didn't look away. My granddaughter is alive because of you, Margaret continued. My son is alive because of you. Not breathing. He was always breathing but alive. There's a difference. And it took me too long to see it. It took all of us too long to see a lot of things. Margaret's chin lifted. I'm not an easy woman. I know. I have opinions. I've noticed. I will probably say the wrong thing at some point. Probably. Margaret almost smiled. But I will try. That's what I came to say. I will try. Amara extended her hand. Margaret looked at it. Then she set down her champagne, took Amara's hand, and pulled her into a hug. Stiff, awkward, brief, but real. Welcome to the family, Margaret whispered. For what it's worth. It's worth a lot. Margaret pulled back, adjusted her pearls, and walked away like the hug had never happened. Amara watched her go and smiled. That night, after the cake was cut and the guests had gone home, the three of them sat in the living room. Lily was curled up on the couch between Richard and Amara, wearing her flower girl dress, which was now stained with chocolate frosting and rose petals. She was fighting sleep with everything she had. Tell me the story, she mumbled. Which story? Richard asked. The one about how Miss Amara came here. You've heard it 100 times, baby. I want to hear it 101. Amara laughed softly and stroked Lily's hair. Richard took a breath and began. Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Lily. She was the bravest girl in the whole world, but she didn't know it yet. She'd lost her mama, and it hurt so much that she decided she didn't want to eat anymore. She didn't want to play or talk or laugh. She just wanted the hurt to stop. Lily listened with her eyes closed, a small smile on her lips. Her daddy tried everything. He called doctors and scientists and all sorts of smart people, but none of them could help. Because what Lily needed wasn't medicine. It was someone who understood. And then Miss Amara came, Lily murmured. And then Miss Amara came. She walked into the house on a cold Tuesday morning. She didn't have a plan. She didn't have a degree. She had a frying pan and a block of American cheese and a heart that knew what grief felt like. And she made me a grilled cheese. She made you a grilled cheese. And she sat with you. And she didn't try to fix you, or rush you, or tell you to be brave. She just sat there and said, I've been where you are, and you're not alone. Lily's breathing was slowing. She nestled deeper between them. And you ate, Richard said, his voice thick. For the first time in 2 weeks, you reached out your hand and you took a bite. And your daddy stood in the doorway and cried because he'd never seen anything so beautiful in his entire life. You're always crying, Daddy, Lily mumbled. I know, sweetheart. I'm working on it. Don't work too hard. Miss Amara says crying means you're brave. Richard looked at Amara over Lily's head. She was smiling. Her eyes were wet. Miss Amara is right, he said. Lily was quiet for a long time. So long they thought she'd fallen asleep. Then she opened her eyes and looked up at both of them. Daddy. Yeah, sweetheart. I'm glad I stayed. His throat closed. He pressed his lips to her forehead. Me too, baby. Me too. I almost didn't. She said it softly, simply. The way she said everything with an honesty that could level a building. I almost went to Mommy. I know. But then Miss Amara came, and she smelled like butter, and she had sad eyes, and she sat on my floor, and she told me about her mama. And I thought maybe I'm not the only one. Maybe other people's hearts break too. And maybe that means I don't have to go. Maybe I can stay and be broken here, with people. Amara's tears fell onto Lily's hair. She didn't wipe them away. She let them fall. And then I ate the grilled cheese, Lily continued. And it tasted like Sundays. And I cried. And Daddy came in and he was crying too. And I thought, okay, we're all broken, but we're broken together. And maybe that's enough. Richard couldn't speak. He pulled Lily closer. She pressed against his chest and yawned. Is that why you stayed? Amara whispered. That's why I stayed, because you showed me that broken people can still eat grilled cheese, and that's basically the same as being okay. She closed her eyes. Within seconds, she was asleep. Richard and Amara sat there in the quiet living room, their daughter between them, the city lights glowing through the windows. Neither of them moved. Neither of them wanted to. She's going to be okay, Amara whispered. She's going to be more than okay. How do you know? Because she has you. She has us. Richard took Amara's hand, held it over Lily's sleeping body. Their fingers laced together, his pale hers, dark, both of them strong, both of them scarred, both of them choosing to hold on. Thank you, he said. For what? For showing up, for not listening when I told you to stay downstairs, for making the world's most insubordinate grilled cheese, for loving my daughter when she couldn't love herself, for loving me when I didn't deserve it. You deserved it. You just didn't know it yet. He leaned his head back against the couch and closed his eyes. Amara did the same. Between them, Lily breathed softly, peacefully, dreaming whatever 4-year-olds dream about. Butterflies, maybe. Or heaven. Or Sunday mornings in a warm kitchen with butter sizzling in a pan. The penthouse was quiet. But it wasn't the old quiet. Not the cold, suffocating silence that had filled these rooms for months after Eleanor died. This was a different kind of quiet. The kind that comes when a house is full. Not of things. Not of money or marble or imported furniture. Full of people who'd fought to find each other. Full of grief that had been honored instead of buried. Full of love that had grown not in spite of the pain, but through it. On the wall in a frame beside Lily's drawing hung a photograph of Eleanor. Smiling. Radiant. Holding a newborn Lily in her arms. Someone, Mrs. Harper, probably had placed a small vase of fresh flowers beneath it. White roses. Eleanor's favorite. She was still part of this family. She always would be. Not as a ghost or a shadow or a wound. As a foundation. The woman who loved Richard first. Who gave Lily life. Who, in ways none of them could fully understand, had brought Amara to their door. Whether it was God or fate, or a prayer whispered by a 3-year-old in the dark, something had answered. Something had said, here, this one, send her. And Amara had come. With nothing but a borrowed apron and a frying pan and a heart that had been broken in the same place as Lily's. And she'd sat on the floor and said the only thing that mattered. I've been where you are. You're not alone. That was it. That was the whole miracle. Not money. Not medicine. Not power or prestige or any of the things the world tells you will save you. Just presence. Just a woman who knew what it meant to lose everything and still choose to show up the next morning. Lily stirred in her sleep and smiled. A real smile. The kind that reaches all the way down to the soul and pulls something warm back up to the surface. And in that home, that penthouse that had once been a tomb, that had held silence like a prisoner, that had watched a little girl fade and a father shatter and a world go dark, there was light again. There was laughter pressed into the walls from the birthday party. There was chocolate frosting on the couch cushions. There was a crooked hand-painted banner in the window and a basket of rose petals spilled across the floor and a ring on a woman's finger that meant she was never leaving. The billionaire's daughter hadn't eaten in 2 weeks. Every expert in the country had failed. Every dollar spent had been wasted. And then a young black woman from the south side of Chicago walked through the service entrance with nothing but her own broken past and a willingness to sit in the dark with a child who'd given up on living. She didn't come with answers. She came with bread and butter and cheese. She came with the truth. She came with the only thing that has ever healed anyone, anywhere in the entire history of the human heart. She showed up. She stayed. And she loved them, not because they were rich, not because they were powerful, not because they had anything to offer her, but because they were broken.
and she knew what broken looked like. And she knew that broken wasn't the end. It was the beginning.